Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the tall windows of the human embassy on Zentara Prime. The view showed the Great Council building where representatives from dozens of alien species worked together. For over 200 years, humans had been part of this galactic community. Jake felt proud of what they had built together. The morning sun of Zentara Prime cast long shadows across the plaza below. 3 different alien species walked together toward the embassy doors. Jake smiled as he recognized them. These were humanity's closest friends in the galaxy. The first group moved like they were swimming through the air. Their blue skin glistened with moisture, and their large eyes reflected the sunlight. These were the Delphinians, an ocean-dwelling people from a world covered entirely in water. Ambassador Keth Prime led them, his webbed hands gesturing as he spoke to his companions. Behind them came the Nexari, their crystal bodies chiming softly with each step. They looked like living gems, their faceted surfaces catching and bending light in beautiful patterns. Elder Shard 9 walked at their center, his ancient form glowing with inner light. The Nexari had lived for thousands of years, storing knowledge in their crystal minds. The third group moved slowly and deliberately. The Verdani looked like walking trees, their bark-like skin covered in tiny leaves that changed color with their emotions. Right now, the leaves showed peaceful green shades. Elder Root Singer swayed gently as she walked, her voice creating a low humming sound that helped plants grow. Jake walked down to meet them in the embassy's main hall. The room had been designed to make all species comfortable. Pools of water let the Delphinians stay moist. Crystal formations provided places for the Nexari to rest and recharge. Living walls covered in earth plants made the Verdani feel at home. "Welcome, my friends," Jake said in the common galactic language. "I hope your journey here was pleasant." Keth Prime's gill slits fluttered with what Jake knew was laughter. "The water recyclers you humans designed work perfectly on our ships. We no longer worry about long travels through space." Shard 9's crystal form chimed musically. "Your artificial intelligence systems have grown more sophisticated since we shared our computing crystals with you. The improvement is remarkable." Root Singer's leaves rustled as she spoke in her deep, slow voice. "The gardens on Mars bloom beautifully. Our botanical knowledge has found a good home with your people." Jake felt the warmth of true friendship. These 3 species had shared their greatest treasures with humanity. The Delphinians had given them water purification technology that worked on any planet. The Nexari had provided crystal computers that made human AI systems incredibly powerful. The Verdani had taught them how to make dead worlds bloom with life. In return, humans had protected them in the Galactic Council. The 3 species were much smaller than humanity. Each had only a few billion people compared to Earth's 50 billion. Without human support, the larger species in the Council would have ignored them completely. "How are things in the Council? Chambers?" Jake asked as they walked toward his office. Keth Prime's large eyes darkened. "Not as peaceful as we would like. Chairman Vex Karoon has been pushing new laws. He wants to limit how much the smaller species can speak in council meetings." Shard 9's glow dimmed slightly. "The hegemony grows bolder each cycle. They believe only the strong should make decisions for the galaxy." The hegemony was a group of 5 powerful species led by the Krillians. They controlled huge fleets of warships and ruled over dozens of worlds. Chairman Vex Karen was a Krillian, warlord who had taken control of the council through political maneuvering and barely hidden threats. Root Singer's leaves turned orange with worry. "We hear whispers that the hegemony plans something big. They say the smaller species are becoming too bold, too dangerous." Jake frowned. "Dangerous? You 3 are the most peaceful people in the galaxy. The Delphinians haven't fought a war in over 1,000 years. The Nexari spend their time collecting knowledge. The Verdani grow plants and compose songs. Perhaps that is what makes us dangerous. To them," Shard 9 replied. "We prove that strength is not the only way to succeed. Our alliance with humanity shows that cooperation works better than conquest." Through the embassy windows, Jake could see the massive hegemony warships orbiting the planet. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons. The ships never landed or docked peacefully. They simply hung in space like storm clouds, reminding everyone of the hegemony's power. Captain Lisa Carter's voice came through Jake's communication device. She commanded the UES Guardian, Earth's flagship in the Council peacekeeping force. Admiral Morrison, we're receiving some unusual communications from hegemony vessels. They're demanding inspection rights for all ships entering Council space. Jake activated the communication link. That's not part of any treaty I know about, Captain. Have you checked with Council security? Yes, sir. Council security says they know nothing about new inspection protocols. The hegemony ships are acting without authorization. Keth Prime's gill slits flapped nervously. This is how it begins. First inspections, then restrictions, then accusations of wrongdoing. Jake looked at his three friends. He had spent years learning to read their emotions and body language. All three showed signs of deep worry. These ancient species had seen empires rise and fall. They recognized the patterns of approaching conflict. Captain Carter, Jake said into his communicator, increase patrols around our allied homeworlds. Nothing obvious, just routine security sweeps. And keep me informed of any hegemony ship movements. Understood, Admiral. Should I alert Earth? Command? Jake looked out at the peaceful plaza where dozens of species mingled freely. Children from different worlds played games together. Merchants sold goods from across the galaxy. Artists shared their creations with anyone who wanted to see them. Not yet, Captain. Let's hope this is just posturing. The Council has kept peace for over 300 years. Surely the hegemony won't risk destroying that. But even as he spoke the words, Jake felt a cold fear growing in his chest. The universe was about to change, and he wasn't sure anyone was ready for what was coming. Outside, the hegemony warships continued their silent vigil, waiting for orders that would soon come. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive hall. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the human section, watching Chairman Vex Karen stride to the central podium. The Krillian's reptilian features showed no emotion, but his yellow eyes gleamed with something that made Jake's skin crawl. Fellow council members, Vex Karun began, his voice echoing through the chamber. I call an emergency session under Article 47 of the Galactic Compact. New intelligence has revealed a terrible threat to our peaceful galaxy. Jake's blood turned cold. Article 47 allowed for immediate action against species deemed dangerous to galactic security. It required no debate, no investigation, just a simple majority vote from the Council's most powerful members. On the main viewing screen, images appeared of Delphinian underwater cities, Nexari crystal forests, and Verdani Grove settlements. They looked beautiful and peaceful, just as Jake remembered them. These three species, Vex Karun continued, have been secretly developing weapons of mass destruction. Our intelligence shows they plan to use these weapons against peaceful council members. Jake jumped to his feet. That's impossible. I demand to see this evidence. The evidence is classified for security reasons, Vex Karun replied smoothly. However, I can tell you that these species have been sharing dangerous technology with each other. They have formed an illegal military alliance. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Jake looked around desperately for support, but many representatives seemed uncertain. The hegemony had spent months spreading rumors about the growing alliance between humans and the three smaller species. The Council has no choice, Vex Karun declared. For the safety of all peaceful species, we must act immediately. The three dangerous species will be relocated to secure worlds where they can be properly monitored. Relocated? Jake shouted. You mean imprisoned? Admiral Morrison, Vex Karun's voice grew cold. Your emotional outburst suggests you knew about these illegal weapons. Perhaps humanity is also part of this conspiracy. Jake felt the trap closing around him. This had been planned for months. The hegemony had built their case carefully, turning the Council's fear into a weapon. The vote came quickly. To 31, species voted in favor of immediate action. Only 12 voted against. The rest abstained, too frightened to oppose the hegemony openly. The motion passes, Vex Karun announced. Hegemony forces will begin the relocation immediately. Jake's communicator exploded with incoming signals. Captain Lisa Carter's voice cut through the chaos. Admiral, hegemony warships are decloaking around Delphina, Nexar, and Verdania. Hundreds of them. On the viewing screens, the peaceful images of the three homeworlds changed to scenes of horror. Massive warships appeared in the skies above Delphinian cities. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, turning the blue oceans into steam. The beautiful underwater cities vaporized in seconds. At Nexar, kinetic bombardment shattered the crystal forests that had grown for thousands of years. Each impact sent rainbow fragments flying through the thin atmosphere. The Nexari's accumulated knowledge, stored in those crystals for millennia, was being destroyed forever. Verdania burned. The hegemony used chemical weapons that poisoned the very soil. Ancient trees that had lived for centuries fell in minutes. The grove cities where millions of Verdani had made their homes turned to ash and smoke. Jake watched in helpless rage as entire civilizations died before his eyes. This wasn't relocation, this was genocide. "Stop this," he screamed at Vex Karun. "They're not fighting back. They're trying to evacuate civilians." "Resistance from military installations has been neutralized," Vex Karun replied calmly. "The relocation is proceeding as planned." Captain Carter's voice crackled with fury and desperation. "Admiral, the Guardian and the rest of our fleet are en route to Delphina, but we won't make it in time. The bombardment is too intense. There's nothing left to save." Jake looked around the council chamber. Some representatives wept openly. Others sat in stunned silence. A few had already left, unable to watch the slaughter. But the hegemony representatives watched with satisfaction. This was what they had wanted all along. Hours passed like years. Finally, the bombardment stopped. The three worlds that had been home to billions of living beings were now lifeless rocks floating in space. Poisoned oceans, shattered crystals, and burning soil were all that remained. "The relocation is complete," Vex Karun announced. "The galaxy is now safe from these dangerous species." Jake felt something break inside his chest. "You murdered them. All of them. Billions of innocent people." "Admiral Morrison," Vex Karun's voice turned threatening, "your continued defense of these terrorists suggests you were involved in their plans. Council security will escort you to holding cells pending investigation." Armored hegemony guards moved toward Jake's section, but he was already moving, his military training taking over. He activated his emergency beacon and spoke quickly into his communicator. "Captain Carter, do not surrender the fleet to hegemony inspection. Withdraw to the edge of council space and begin rescue operations. Save whoever you can." The guards reached Jake as he finished speaking. Energy restraints locked around his wrists, but he had done what he could. The human fleet was free to act. Captain Carter's response came through clearly. "Understood, Admiral. We're already picking up escape pods and emergency shelters. There are survivors." "How many?" Jake asked as the guards dragged him toward the exit. "Not many, sir. Maybe 1,000 total from all three worlds, but they're alive and we'll keep them that way." Jake looked back at Vex Karun one last time. The Krillian chairman was smiling now, his sharp teeth gleaming in the chamber's lights. "You think you've won," Jake said. "But you've just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Humanity doesn't forget its friends, and we never forgive those who murder them." Vex Karun's smile widened. "Humanity is alone now, Admiral. 12 ships against the entire hegemony fleet. You cannot even protect yourselves, much less seek revenge for these terrorists." As the guards dragged him from the chamber, Jake heard Captain Carter's voice one more time through his fading communicator. "Admiral, we have Keth II aboard the Guardian. He's the only surviving member of the Delphinian ruling council. He says he has information about hegemony military positions." Jake smiled grimly as the communication cut out. The hegemony had made one crucial error. They had left witnesses alive, and those witnesses would help humanity learn everything needed to make the killers pay. In the depths of space, 12 human ships gathered the scattered survivors of 3 dead civilizations. Each refugee carried memories of their murdered worlds and a burning desire for justice. The hegemony thought the threat was over. They were wrong. The real war was about to begin. Captain Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian as it approached Earth's solar system. Behind her flagship, 11 other human vessels carried the precious cargo of survivors from 3 murdered worlds. The journey home had taken 2 weeks of desperate flight through hostile space. In the medical bay, fewer than 1,000 refugees clung to life. Keth II, the lone surviving member of the Delphinian ruling council, had shared everything he knew about hegemony fleet positions and battle tactics. Elder Shard 9 had transferred critical data crystals before most of his people died. Root Singer's daughter, the only surviving Verdani botanist, carried seeds from her homeworld in her bark-like skin. Earth Control, this is Captain Carter requesting immediate priority landing for refugee transport and emergency council session, she transmitted as Earth's blue surface filled the view screen. The response came instantly. Captain Carter, you are cleared for direct approach to Geneva Spaceport. President Sullivan is waiting with the full Global Defense Council. 2 hours later, Carter stood in the underground command center beneath the Swiss mountains. The footage from the massacre played on wall-sized screens while world leaders watched in horrified silence. President Kate Sullivan's face was pale with rage. 3 billion Delphinians, she said quietly. 8 billion Nexari, 12 billion Verdani, all murdered in a single day. Fleet Admiral Ben Taylor, commander of Earth's Home Defense Forces, reviewed the tactical reports. The hegemony used over 800 warships for the attack. They overwhelmed the planet's minimal defenses within minutes. It was planned genocide, not military action. Dr. Sam Rodriguez from the Terran Research Institute stepped forward. His usually calm face showed barely controlled fury. Madam President, there's something the Council doesn't know about our capabilities. Something we've kept secret for good reason. President Sullivan turned to him. What kind of secret, Doctor? Our defensive fleet isn't purely defensive. Every ship carries weapon systems based on technology our alien friends shared with us. We've also been building a new generation of warships in the asteroid belt. The outer system shipyards have been working for 50 years on a project called Deep Guard. Admiral Taylor's eyes widened. You mean the mining platforms in the asteroid belt are actually shipyards, the largest in human history. We've built them inside hollowed-out asteroids to hide them from long-range sensors. Right now we have 48 battleships and 96 cruisers ready for deployment, all armed with hybrid technology that combines human engineering with Delphinian stealth systems, Nixari computing power, and Verdani biological weapons. The room fell silent except for the hum of ventilation systems. President Sullivan stood, slowly. Dr. Rodriguez, are you telling me we have a secret war fleet? Yes, Madam President, we called it an insurance policy. After the corporate wars of the 22nd century, we decided humanity would never again be caught defenseless. The Deep Guard project has continued in secret for 5 decades. Carter felt her heart racing. What about personnel? You can't hide training. That many crews. The crews think they're participating in deep space mining operations and asteroid defense drills. Most don't know they're actually training for fleet combat. But the training is real. We have over 200,000 personnel, ready for immediate deployment. President Sullivan looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. The question before us is simple. Do we accept this genocide and try to negotiate with the hegemony? Or do we honor our alliance with our murdered friends? There's no question, replied General Maria Santos, head of the Global Marine Corps. They killed our allies. They arrested our ambassador. They think humanity is weak because we chose peace over conquest. We need to show them how wrong they are. Dr. Rodriguez activated a holographic display showing the hidden shipyards. Massive vessels hung in the darkness between asteroids, their hulls bristling with weapons that looked both familiar and alien. The flagship is called the UES Retribution. It's 3 times larger than our current ships and carries enough firepower to destroy an entire hegemony battle group. The AI system is based on Nixari crystals provided by Elder Shard 9 before his world died. Carter studied the displays with growing amazement. How long would it take to fully deploy this fleet? 6 months to complete final preparations and training. The crews are already experienced with their ships. They just need to learn they're warriors instead of miners. President Sullivan made her decision. Dr. Rodriguez, you have full authorization to activate the Deep Guard project. Admiral, Taylor, begin immediate mobilization of all Earth Defense Forces. Captain Carter, you're promoted to Admiral and given command of the 1st Battle Fleet. What about the Galactic Council? Asked Foreign Minister Chen Wei. If we attack the hegemony, we'll be branded as terrorists ourselves. The Galactic Council watched genocide happen and did nothing. President Sullivan replied coldly. We're withdrawing from the Council effective immediately. From now on, humanity stands with its true friends. Over the following months, Earth transformed. Lunar factories that had produced civilian goods switched to manufacturing weapons and armor. The Mars colonies began building support ships using advanced metallurgy learned from the Verdani. Mining stations throughout the solar system provided raw materials for the growing war machine. Admiral Carter took command of the UES Retribution at the main asteroid shipyard. The massive vessel's bridge was a cathedral of technology, with Nexari, crystal displays showing tactical information in 3 dimensions. The ship's AI spoke with a voice that sounded almost like Elder Shard 9. Admiral Carter, the AI said as she toured the ship, I have analyzed all available data on hegemony, tactics, and ship designs. Their vessels are powerful but inflexible. They rely on brute force rather than strategy. We can use this against them. In the ship's memorial hall, Carter found displays honoring the murdered worlds. Water from Delphina flowed through crystal, formations from Nexar, while Verdani plants grew in specially prepared soil. The few surviving refugees worked here daily, tending to the last remnants of their civilizations. Keth II approached Carter as she stood before the memorial. His blue skin had dulled with grief, but his large eyes still burned with determination. Admiral Carter, he said in his musical voice, my people were pacifists for 1,000 years. We believed that peace could always be maintained through discussion and compromise. The hegemony has taught us that some evil can only be stopped by force. Your people's knowledge will help us stop them, Carter replied. The stealth technology you shared makes our ships invisible to their sensors. We'll strike before they know we're there. Rootsinger's daughter, now called Seedkeeper, rustled her leaves as she tended the memorial garden. The Verdani sang songs of growth and life for millennia. Now I will teach your warriors the songs of decay and death. The hegemony will learn that life can be as destructive as it is creative. 6 months after the massacre, Earth's war fleet assembled in the outer system. 48 battleships hung in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the distant light of the sun. 96 cruisers formed a protective screen around them. 300 support vessels carried supplies, troops, and the terrible weapons humanity had prepared. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and activated the fleet-wide communications system. 200,000 human warriors listened as she spoke. 6 months ago, our friends were murdered by cowards who attack the innocent and defenseless. Today, we begin the journey to make those cowards pay for their crimes. We carry with us the hopes of 3 dead civilizations and the determination of humanity itself. She looked at the memorial displays showing the destroyed worlds. We are no longer the peaceful species that joined the Galactic Council. We are humanity's sword, forged in the fires of righteous anger. The hegemony thinks they have eliminated a threat. They are about to learn they have created their own destruction. The war fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system. Behind them, Earth's factories continued building more ships, more weapons, more tools of war. Humanity had awakened from its peaceful dream and found itself capable of nightmares that would haunt the galaxy. The hegemony had murdered humanity's friends. Now they would learn the price of making enemies of the human race. Admiral Lisa Carter studied the holographic display aboard the UES Retribution. 12 hegemony systems glowed red on the tactical map. Each one contained military bases, supply depots, or shipyards that had supported the massacre of humanity's allies. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Carter, she transmitted to the 48 battleships spread across space. Operation Reckoning begins in 30 minutes. Remember, we target military assets only. Evacuate all civilians before destroying infrastructure. The human war fleet had spent 2 months positioning itself for this moment. Using Delphinian stealth technology, the ships had approached their targets undetected. The hegemony had no idea death was coming for them. Captain Pete Harrison commanded the Marine Assault Force aboard the battleship UES Vengeance. His soldiers wore bioarmor created with Verdani plant technology. The living suits could adapt to any environment, providing protection against vacuum, toxins, or energy weapons. Marines, Harrison addressed his troops, we're hitting Kieran Station first. It's the hegemony's main forward base. Intelligence shows 3,000 enemy personnel and minimal civilian presence. Our job is to capture the station and extract information about their fleet movements. The Verdani bioarmor responded to Harrison's emotions, shifting from green to dark red as his anger grew. 6 months ago, these same soldiers cheered as our friends burned. Today they learn what happens when you murder the innocent. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, the Nexari AI called Shard 9 chimed softly. Admiral, all stealth systems are functioning perfectly. The enemy sensors cannot detect our approach. First strike coordinates are locked in. Carter nodded to her weapons officer. Commander Stevens, you may fire when ready. The opening salvo was devastating. Crystal-tipped torpedoes invisible to enemy sensors struck 12 military bases simultaneously. The weapons had been designed using Nexari computational power to find the exact weak points in hegemony defenses. At Kieran Station, the first explosions crippled the main defense grid. Emergency alarms wailed across the massive facility as Krillian soldiers scrambled to battle stations. But their weapons couldn't target enemies they couldn't see. Captain Harrison's assault shuttles descended through the chaos. The Delphinian stealth technology made them ghosts in the night. The first the defenders knew of the attack was when human Marines appeared in their corridors. Surrender or die, Harrison announced over the station's communication system. You have 60 seconds to lay down your weapons and submit to arrest for war crimes. Most of the Krillian garrison chose to fight. They were proud warriors who had never known defeat. That pride cost them dearly. The human Marines moved through the station like a plague, their bio-armor adapting instantly to every weapon the defenders used. In the main command center, Station Commander Vex Torak watched his tactical displays with growing horror. Human ships appeared on his sensors only when they fired. By then, it was too late to respond. How many ships are attacking? Us, he demanded of his sensor operator. Unknown, sir. They appear, fire, then vanish again. Our return fire hits empty space. Vex Torak had commanded this station for 20 years. He had overseen the bombardment of Delphina from this very room. Now human soldiers were at his door and he could do nothing to stop them. Captain Harrison burst into the command center with his assault team. The Krillian defenders fired their energy weapons, but the bio-armor absorbed the blasts and converted them into power for the Marines' own weapons. Commander Vex Torak, Harrison said, his voice distorted by his helmet speakers. You are under arrest for genocide and crimes against sentient life. Humans cannot arrest me, Vex Torak snarled. I am an officer of the hegemony. The hegemony murdered 23 billion innocent people, Harrison replied. Your rank means nothing to us now. The battle for Kieran Station lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the human Marines had captured over 800 prisoners and seized enough intelligence data to plan a dozen more attacks. The station's massive weapons were turned on the hegemony supply ships trying to escape the system. Similar scenes played out across 12 star systems. Hegemony bases that had existed for centuries were captured or destroyed in single coordinated strikes. The enemy's response was always the same: confusion, panic, then defeat. At the Battle of Keth Minor, named for the murdered Delphinian homeworld, Admiral Carter demonstrated humanity's new approach to warfare. Instead of the traditional ship-to-ship combat the hegemony expected, human forces used swarm tactics. Dozens of smaller vessels equipped with Nexari crystal torpedoes overwhelmed the enemy shields, while battleships delivered kinetic strikes from long range. The hegemony fleet found itself fighting shadows that struck without warning and vanished before return fire could be aimed. Target their engines first, Carter ordered her fleet. Disable, don't destroy. We want prisoners who can tell us where their main fleets are hiding. The UES Retribution's main guns fired quantum-charged projectiles that punched through hegemony armor, like it was paper. But instead of destroying the enemy ships completely, the weapons targeted specific systems: engines, weapons, life support. Everything was methodically disabled. "Admiral," reported Commander Stevens, "enemy flagship is requesting terms for surrender." "Tell them to prepare for boarding," Carter replied, "and remind them that cooperation will be taken into account during their war crimes trials." The hegemony commander was a Krillian admiral named Sekvareth. He had personally overseen the bombardment of Nexar, watching billions of crystal beings shatter into fragments. Now he sat in the UES Retribution's brig, his proud bearing broken by defeat. "You fight without honor," he told Carter during his interrogation. "Striking from stealth, targeting helpless ships, this is not warfare." "You're right," Carter agreed. "This isn't warfare. Warfare implies both sides have a chance to fight. What you did to our friends wasn't warfare either. It was murder. And murderers don't deserve honorable combat." Within 2 weeks of the first strike, humanity had captured or destroyed every hegemony installation in the outer territories. The enemy's response was swift and massive. Over 2,000 warships began moving toward human space, led by Chairman Vex Karen himself. "Let them come," Carter told her fleet commanders during their strategy meeting. "They think in terms of big fleets and massive battles. We'll teach them that the biggest target is the easiest to hit." Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the communication link from Earth. "Admiral, we have a new weapon ready for deployment. Elder Shard 9 sacrificed his remaining life energy to create a quantum resonance device. It can disable entire fleets by overloading their computer systems." Carter looked at the tactical display showing the approaching hegemony armada. 2,000 ships against humanity's war fleet. The odds would have been impossible 6 months ago. Now they were just another problem to solve. "Deploy the weapon to all battleships," she ordered, "and prepare for the largest space battle in galactic history. The hegemony wants to finish what they started. We're going to give them that chance." As the human fleet prepared for the climactic battle, automated beacons left behind in the captured systems continued broadcasting the same message to any ship that approached. This system was cleansed of hegemony forces by the Earth Defense Fleet. This is the price of genocide. Any attempt to reoccupy these facilities will result in immediate destruction. Humanity remembers its friends. Humanity never forgives their murderers. The message played in 47 different languages, ensuring every species in the galaxy would understand. The peaceful humans who had joined the Galactic Council were gone. In their place stood something far more dangerous. A species that had learned to wage war with the same dedication they had once shown to peace. The final battle was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The space around Zentara Prime filled with the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Over 2,000 hegemony warships formed battle lines around the former Council world. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons designed to crush any opposition through overwhelming firepower. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the enemy fleet through the viewscreen. Her own forces numbered less than 500 ships, but each vessel carried weapons that the hegemony couldn't imagine. "Admiral," reported Commander Stevens, "long-range sensors show Chairman Vex Karen's flagship at the center of their formation, the Krillian Dreadnought Destroyer of Worlds. It's 3 times larger than our biggest battleship." Carter smiled grimly. "Size isn't everything, Commander. Dr. Rodriguez, is the quantum resonance weapon ready for deployment?" Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the communication link from the research vessel UES Discovery. "All systems ready, Admiral. Elder Shard 9's final gift to humanity is armed and targeting the enemy fleet's computer networks." The battle began when Chairman Vex Karen broadcast a message to the human fleet. His reptilian face filled every screen, yellow eyes blazing with hatred. "Admiral Carter, you have led humanity into its final mistake. Surrender now, and I will. Make your deaths quick. Continue this foolish resistance, and your species will suffer the same fate as your terrorist allies." Carter activated the fleet-wide communication system. "Chairman Vex Karun, 6 months ago you murdered 23 billion innocent people. Today, You answer for those crimes. This is your only chance to surrender. Vex Karoon's laughter echoed across space. I have 2,000 ships, human. You have barely 500. Simple mathematics will decide this battle. You're wrong, Carter replied. This battle was decided the moment you chose genocide over justice. The first phase of the battle lasted 3 hours. Hegemony ships fired massive energy beams and kinetic projectiles, filling space with deadly radiation. But their targets vanished before the weapons could hit. Delphinian stealth technology made the human fleet invisible until they chose to strike. Human ships appeared long enough to fire their crystal torpedoes, then faded back into the darkness. Each torpedo was guided by Nexari computational power to find the weakest point in enemy defenses. Hegemony vessels that had seemed invincible began exploding one by one. Captain Nathan Brooks commanded the battleship UES Vengeance as it made a desperate run toward the enemy flagship. His ship carried a prototype weapon designed by the last Verdani botanist. The bioweapon would spread through enemy fleets like a disease, shutting down their organic computer systems. All crew, this is Captain Brooks, he announced over the ship's communication system. We're going straight into the heart of their fleet. Volunteers only for this mission. Anyone who wants to transfer to escape pods, do it now. Not a single crew member left their station. They had all seen the footage of the murdered worlds. They all remembered their friends who had died screaming in poisoned oceans and burning forests. The UES Vengeance burst from stealth directly in front of the destroyer of worlds. Vex Karoon's massive flagship fired everything it had, but the smaller human ship danced between the energy beams like a leaf in a storm. Bioweapon deployed, Brooks reported as green spores erupted from his ship's launch tubes. Target the organic. Computer cores. Show them what Verdani plants can really do. The spores spread through the hegemony fleet faster than their sensors could track. Within minutes, ships began losing power as their biological computers died from engineered plant toxins. Weapons stopped firing. Engines shut down. Life support systems failed. Admiral Carter watched the enemy fleet crumble from within. All ships, concentrate fire on disabled vessels. Dr. Rodriguez, activate the quantum resonance weapon. The weapon that Elder Shard 9 had created with his dying breath sent waves of energy through space. Every hegemony ship still functioning suddenly found its artificial intelligence systems overloaded. Navigation computers crashed. Targeting systems failed. Communications went silent. Chairman Vex Karoon's flagship drifted helplessly as its crew tried to restart their disabled systems. Around it, hundreds of other ships floated dead in space, their crews trapped inside metal coffins. But the battle wasn't over. Vex Karoon had one final weapon, a planet-killer device designed to destroy entire worlds. If he couldn't win, he would take Zentara Prime with him into death. Human scum. His voice crackled over emergency frequencies. If I cannot rule this galaxy, then no one will. Zentara Prime dies with me. The massive weapon powered up in the depths of his crippled flagship. Energy readings showed it could crack a planet's crust and boil away its atmosphere. 8 billion people lived on Zentara Prime, representing dozens of peaceful species. Carter made a decision that would haunt her dreams forever. All ships target the destroyer of worlds. Maximum firepower. Stop that weapon at any cost. The combined firepower of the human fleet focused on a single target. Crystal torpedoes, kinetic projectiles, and energy beams converged on Vex Karoon's flagship. The ship's massive shields held for precious seconds, then collapsed under the overwhelming assault. The planet-killer weapon exploded inside the destroyer of worlds. The chain reaction vaporized the flagship and sent a shockwave through the surrounding fleet. Half the remaining hegemony vessels were destroyed instantly. The other half drifted as burning wreckage. When the explosions faded, space around Zentara Prime was filled with debris and the hulks of destroyed warships. Of the 2,000 ships that had come to destroy humanity, fewer than 100 remained intact. The surviving hegemony commanders surrendered within the hour. Admiral Carter received their formal capitulation aboard the UES Retribution. The Alien officers who had once commanded vast fleets now stood in chains before a human tribunal. "The hegemony submits to human authority," declared Admiral Sek Verith, the highest-ranking survivor. "We accept full responsibility for our crimes and await your judgment." Carter looked at the defeated aliens who had murdered her friends. "The terms are simple. Full reparations to the families of the murdered species, complete dismantlement of your military forces, submission to human oversight of your governments. Any attempt to rebuild your war machine will result in the total destruction of your homeworlds." "And if we refuse?" asked one Krillian officer. "Then you join your chairman in death," Carter replied coldly. "Those are the only two choices you have left." The war officially ended 3 months later with the signing of the new Galactic Compact. Earth became the reluctant capital of a reformed galactic government. The surviving hegemony species were placed under human administration until they could prove they were no longer a threat. Admiral Carter, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, oversaw the construction of memorial worlds for the murdered species. Delphinian water cities were recreated on ocean planets. Nexari crystal forests grew on worlds with the right mineral content. Verdani grove cities bloomed on garden worlds tended by human caretakers. The few surviving members of the three species worked alongside humans to preserve their cultures and knowledge. Their children would grow up knowing they were not alone in the universe. Fleet Admiral Carter stood in the memorial garden on New Zentara, where crystalline trees grew beside flowing water and singing flowers. The garden contained soil from each of the destroyed homeworlds, carefully preserved and protected. A young ensign approached her as she tended the memorial. "Fleet Admiral, do you ever regret the path humanity chose? The galaxy fears us now. They call us the Sword of Justice, but also the Bringers of Death." Carter touched one of the crystal trees, feeling the stored memories of 1 billion Nexari who would never sing again. "Fear can be a good thing, Ensign. It prevents wars better than treaties. As long as the galaxy remembers what happened here, no one will be tempted to commit genocide again." "But at what cost?" the ensign asked. "We've become the very thing we fought against, a military power that rules through strength." "No," Carter said firmly. "The hegemony ruled through conquest and oppression. We rule through justice and protection. The difference is that our enemies chose their fate. Our friends never had that choice." Above them, Earth's war fleets patrolled the galaxy. The peaceful humans who had once sought harmony through diplomacy were gone. In their place stood guardians who understood that sometimes the price of peace was the capacity for overwhelming violence. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace enforced by the memory of what humanity could do to those who threatened the innocent. And in the memorial garden, where the last remnants of 3 murdered civilizations grew in alien soil, Fleet Admiral Carter made a promise to the dead: never again. As long as humanity lives, never again. The stars bore witness to her words, and the galaxy remembered.